Jake Miller gripped the controls of his cargo ship as red warning lights flashed all around him. The hyperspace engine was making horrible grinding noises, and smoke filled the small cockpit. He had been flying freight runs for 15 years, but he had never seen his ship break down this badly. "Come on, old girl," Jake muttered to his ship. "Just hold together a little longer." But the ship had other plans. With a loud bang, the hyperspace drive died completely. Jake found himself falling out of hyperspace near a planet he did not recognize. The world below looked dead and empty, covered with strange purple crystals and brown wasteland. Jake checked his star charts, but this planet was not on any of them. His communications equipment was fried, and his engines were barely working. He had no choice but to land and hope someone would come looking for him. The landing was rough. Jake's ship scraped across the rocky ground, throwing him around in his seat. When everything finally stopped moving, he sat still for a moment, listening to the ship's systems shutting down one by one. Jake grabbed his emergency pack and stepped outside. The air was thin but breathable, though it tasted strange and metallic. The sky was an odd orange color, and two small suns hung low on the horizon. Purple crystals stuck out of the ground everywhere, some as tall as trees. "Well, this is just perfect," Jake said to himself. He activated his emergency beacon and hoped it would reach someone. Somewhere, for the next 3 days, Jake worked on his ship and waited for rescue. The planet was completely silent except for the wind howling through the crystal formations. He had seen no signs of life anywhere. His water was running low, and his food would not last much longer. On the 4th day, while searching for salvageable parts from his damaged engines, Jake heard something that made him freeze. It was a soft whimpering sound, like a puppy crying. But there should not be any animals on this dead world. Jake followed the sound to a pile of fallen rocks about 100 yards from his ship. The whimpering was coming from underneath the stones. Someone or something was trapped under there. Jake began moving rocks as fast as he could. Some were too heavy for him to lift alone, so he used a metal bar from his ship to pry them loose. After an hour of hard work, he created a small opening in the rock pile. What he saw inside made him gasp. 3 small creatures were huddled together in the space under the rocks. They were covered in scales that seemed to change color in the bayou, light shifting from deep blue to silver to gold. Each one was about the size of a house cat, with 4 legs, small wings, and long tails. Their eyes were large and intelligent, looking up at Jake with a mixture of fear and hope. "What are you little guys?" Jake whispered. The creatures looked like baby dragons from the old stories his grandmother used to tell him. But dragons were supposed to be just myths, weren't they? Jake carefully reached into the opening. The 3 creatures backed away at first, but they were too weak to go far. He could see that they were badly hurt and very thin. Their scales were dull, and one of them had a deep cut on its leg. "It's okay," Jake said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." He continued moving rocks until the opening was big enough for him to crawl inside. The space under the rocks was larger than he had thought, and in the back corner, Jake found something that made his stomach turn. It was the body of a much larger dragon, easily 20 feet long. Its scales were the same shifting colors as the baby's, but they were now gray and lifeless. The adult dragon had several burn marks on its body that looked like weapon blasts. Jake realized what had happened. Someone had killed the mother dragon and left her babies here to die. "You poor little things," Jake said. He felt angry at whoever had done this cruel thing. The 3 baby dragons were so weak they could barely move. Jake carefully picked up the first one, surprised by how light it was. The creature made a small chirping sound, but did not try to fight him. Jake carried all 3 babies back to his ship, one at a time. He set up a makeshift nest for them using blankets from his emergency supplies. Then he opened one of his food packs and tried to figure out what baby dragons might eat. He started with water, using a small spoon to drip it into their mouths. The babies drank eagerly, which was a good sign. Next, he tried some of his protein paste, the emergency food that tasted terrible but had all the nutrients a person needed. To his surprise, the baby dragons ate the protein paste without any trouble. They seemed to like it better than Jake did. As the babies ate and drank, Jake noticed they were watching him carefully. Their eyes followed his every movement, and they seemed to understand that he was trying to help them. "I guess you're stuck with me for now," Jake told them. "Let me think of some names for you." The smallest dragon had the brightest scales and seemed the most curious about everything. Jake decided to call him Spark. The middle-sized one appeared more careful and protective of the others, so Jake named her Ember. The largest baby dragon was clearly the smartest, already figuring out how to open the food containers by himself. Jake called him Flare. That night, Jake sat beside the 3 sleeping dragons and wondered what he had gotten himself into. His emergency beacon was still broadcasting, but no one had answered yet. His food supplies would run out in less than a week, even without feeding the dragons. But looking at the 3 small creatures sleeping peacefully in their blanket nest, Jake knew he could not abandon them. Someone had already left them to die once. He would not let that happen again, even if it meant risking his own life. "Don't worry, little ones," Jake whispered. "I'll take care of you." Outside his ship, the alien wind continued to blow across the crystal wasteland, carrying his words away into the strange orange sky. 2 weeks passed on the crystal wasteland, and Jake watched the 3 baby dragons grow stronger each day. What had started as an act of kindness was becoming something much more important. The dragons were not just getting healthier, they were getting smarter. Spark, the smallest dragon, had learned to copy Jake's hand movements. When Jake pointed at something, Spark would point with his tiny claw. When Jake waved, Spark would flap his small wing in return. The little dragon seemed to understand that these gestures had meaning. Ember, the protective one, had appointed herself as the guard of their small family. She always positioned herself between Jake and any strange sounds from outside the ship. When Jake worked on repairs, Ember would sit nearby and watch for danger, her head turning at every noise. Flare, the largest and smartest, had surprised Jake the most. The dragon had figured out how to open food containers and had even learned to turn the ship's lights on and off. More amazing still, Flare was starting to make sounds that almost sounded like words. "Yeah, ache," Flare had said one morning. The sounds rough but clearly meant to be Jake's name. Jake nearly dropped his breakfast. "Did you just say my name?" Flare tilted his head and repeated, "Yeah, ache." From that day on, all 3 dragons began trying to speak. Their voices were strange, like a mix of bird calls and whispers, but Jake could understand them better each day. Jake's emergency beacon had been broadcasting for 2 weeks without any response. His food was running dangerously low, and he was starting to worry that no one would ever find them. But he refused to let the dragons see his fear. On the 15th day, everything changed. Jake was outside his ship, trying to fix a damaged solar panel, when a shadow fell across the crystal wasteland. He looked up to see a sleek black ship descending from the orange sky. The vessel was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. With smooth curves and no visible engines, the ship landed about 50 yards away, and Jake's heart began to race. After 2 weeks of silence, someone had finally found them. But as the ship's ramp lowered, Jake realized these were not human rescuers. The being that walked down the ramp was tall and reptilian, covered in dark green scales that gleamed in the alien sunlight. He wore some kind of military uniform and carried a weapon at his side. His eyes were golden and cold, and when he spoke, his voice had a harsh, hissing quality. "Human," the alien said in accented English. "You are trespassing on hegemony territory." Jake raised his hands to show he was not armed. "I'm sorry, my ship broke down." I had to make an emergency landing. The alien's golden eyes narrowed. I am Captain Zefkar of the Draconic Hegemony. This world belongs to us. He looked at Jake's damaged ship with disgust. Your presence here is illegal. I'll leave as soon as I can fix my ship, Jake said. I don't want any trouble. Captain Zefkar was about to respond when a small sound came from inside Jake's ship. It was Spark, making his happy chirping noise. The alien's expression changed completely. His eyes went wide, and he pushed past Jake toward the ship. What was that sound? Zefkar demanded. Jake stepped in front of him. Just some equipment, nothing important. But it was too late. Ember had heard the stranger's voice and came to the ship's doorway to investigate. When she saw the large reptilian alien, she made a small growling sound and spread her tiny wings. Captain Zefkar stared at Ember in shock. That is impossible, he whispered. Flare and Spark appeared beside Ember, all three dragons looking at the alien with curiosity. Zefkar took a step backward, his hand moving to his weapon. Where did you get those? He asked, his voice tight with emotion. I found them, Jake said. They were trapped under some rocks. Someone had left them here to die. Left them to die? Zefkar repeated. Yes, that is correct. That is what we do with the defective ones. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. Defective? What do you mean? Captain Zefkar looked at the three dragons with a mixture of disgust and amazement. These are dragon cubs, but they are worthless. Dragons who cannot breathe fire are defective. They bring shame to their families. It is our way to leave them on dead worlds like this one. Your way is wrong, Jake said firmly. Zefkar's eyes flashed with anger. You dare to judge our traditions, human. You know nothing about our people. I know enough, Jake replied. I know that leaving babies to die is wrong, no matter what species they are. The alien captain stared at Jake for a long moment. You fed them. You cared for them. Of course I did. They were hungry and scared. But they are useless, Zefkar said, sounding confused. They cannot breathe fire. They cannot fight. They serve no purpose. Jake looked at the three dragons who had moved closer to him during the conversation. Spark was holding onto Jake's leg with his small claws. Ember had positioned herself protectively in front of the group. Flare was watching the alien captain with intelligent eyes. They're not useless, Jake said. They're smart and loyal and brave. They're my family now. Zefkar made a harsh laughing sound. Family? A human and three defective dragons? This is madness. Maybe, Jake said, but it's my madness. The alien captain studied Jake for a long moment. I could take you to the nearest human outpost, he said finally. But the defective ones stay here. It is their fate. No, Jake said without hesitation. We stay together. Then you will all die here, Zefkar said. Is that what you want? Before Jake could answer, an alarm began sounding from the alien ship. Zefkar pressed a device on his wrist and spoke rapidly in his own language. When he finished, his expression had changed from annoyance to concern. We have a problem, he said to Jake. Void Reapers are approaching this system. They are raiders and killers. We must leave immediately. Jake looked at his own ship, still damaged and unable to fly. My ship isn't ready. Then you will have to come with me, Zefkar said, but I will not take the defective ones. The sound of engines filled the air as more ships appeared in the orange sky. These new vessels were rough and ugly, covered with weapons and painted in dark colors. Void Reapers, Zefkar hissed. They must have detected our ships. The first enemy ship opened fire, sending bright energy beams toward them. Jake grabbed Spark and dove for cover behind his ship. Ember and Flare followed. Their small bodies pressed against Jake's sides. Captain Zefkar drew his weapon and began firing back at the attacking ships. Human, he shouted over the noise of battle. If you want to live, help me fight. Jake looked at the three small dragons who trusted him completely. They had already lost their mother to someone's cruelty. He would not let them lose their new family too. Stay close to me, he told the dragons. Then he grabbed his own emergency weapon and joined the fight. The battle was not going well. Jake crouched behind his damaged ship with the three dragon cubs pressed against his sides. Energy blasts from the Void Reaper ships lit up the orange sky, and the sound of explosions echoed across the crystal wasteland. Captain Zethkar was fighting hard, but there were too many enemy ships. His weapon sent bright beams of light toward the attackers, but for every ship he hit, two more seemed to take its place. Human! Zethkar shouted over the noise. We cannot win this fight. We must retreat. But Jake's ship was still broken, and the alien captain's vessel was surrounded by enemy fire. There was nowhere to run. A Void Reaper ship swooped low, its weapons aimed directly at Jake and the dragons. Jake threw himself over the three cubs, trying to protect them with his own body. This was it. After everything they had been through, together, they were going to die on this wasteland planet. Then something impossible happened. Spark, the smallest dragon, suddenly stood up and spread his tiny wings. A bright blue light began to glow around his small body. The light grew brighter and brighter until Jake had to close his eyes. When the light faded, Jake opened his eyes to see a shimmering blue barrier surrounding them. The Void Reaper's energy blast hit the barrier and bounced away harmlessly. What? Captain Zethkar stared in shock. That is not possible. But the surprises were just beginning. Ember, the protective dragon, let out a small roar. Instead of fire, bolts of electricity shot from her mouth toward the attacking ships. The electric bolts struck three Void Reaper vessels, and their engines sparked and died. The ships crashed into the crystal formations with loud crashes. Flare, the smartest dragon, was doing something even more amazing. He was staring at the thing, largest enemy ship with intense concentration. Suddenly, the ship began to shake and wobble in the air. It was as if some invisible force was grabbing it and pulling it down. Gravity manipulation, Zethkar whispered. But that is impossible. Only the ancient dragons could do such things. The large enemy ship could not fight against Flare's power. It spun out of control and crashed into the ground with a tremendous explosion. The remaining Void Reaper ships, seeing their companions destroyed by what looked like baby dragons, decided they had picked the wrong fight. They turned and fled into the orange sky, their engines screaming as they escaped. Jake sat in stunned silence, looking at the three small dragons who had just saved all their lives. Spark's blue barrier was still glowing softly around them. Ember had small sparks of electricity dancing between her claws. Flare was breathing heavily from the effort of crushing the enemy ship. "Ya ache okay?" Flare asked, his voice filled with concern. "I'm fine," Jake said, his voice shaking with amazement. "But how did you do that? I thought dragons were supposed to breathe fire." Captain Zethkar slowly walked over to them, his weapon forgotten in his hand. His golden eyes were wide with disbelief. "They are not defective," he said quietly. "They are evolutionary variants. Dragons with abilities beyond anything we have seen in centuries." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means," Zethkar said, "that these three cubs are the most powerful dragons born in the last 1,000 years. In our society, we test all dragon cubs for fire-breathing ability when they are very young. Those who cannot breathe fire are considered worthless and abandoned. But we never test for other abilities." Jake looked at the three dragons with new understanding. "So you've been throwing away your most gifted children because they were different?" Zethkar's scales seemed to lose some of their color. "Yes, for generations we have been abandoning dragons like these. We thought we were removing weakness from our bloodlines. Instead, we were destroying our greatest treasures." Spark made his happy chirping sound and nuzzled against Jake's hand. "The blue barrier around them finally faded away. The energy shields, the electromagnetic pulses, the gravity control, Zethkar continued. These are abilities that our ancient texts speak of, but we thought they were just legends. Dragons with such powers could reshape entire star systems. But they're just babies, Jake said, gently stroking Ember's scales. Babies who have already shown more power than most adult dragons possess, Zethkar replied. And they did it to protect you. Their bond with you has awakened abilities that might have remained hidden forever. Jake realized what this meant. Other people are going to want them, aren't they? Zethkar nodded grimly. When word of this battle spreads, every major power in the galaxy will want to study these cubs. The hegemony will demand their return. Your human governments will want to examine them. Criminal organizations will try to steal them for their own purposes. As if to prove his point, Zethkar's communication device began beeping urgently. He listened to the message, and his expression grew more serious. My ship's sensors recorded the entire battle, he said. The data has already been transmitted to Hegemony Command. They are sending a fleet to retrieve the cubs. We won't let them take the dragons, Jake said firmly. And my sensors have detected human ships approaching this system as well, Zethkar continued. Your people must have detected the energy signatures from the battle. They will be here soon. Jake felt a chill of fear. The three dragons had saved their lives, but in doing so, they had revealed themselves to be the most valuable creatures in the galaxy. Now everyone would want to claim them. Families stay together, Flair said, seeming to understand the danger. No leave, Yaek. That's right, Jake said, pulling all three dragons closer to him. We're family, and families stick together. Captain Zethkar watched this display of loyalty with something that might have been respect. The galaxy is about to become a very dangerous place for you, human. Are you prepared for that? Jake looked at Spark, who was already practicing making small energy shields. He watched Ember generate tiny lightning bolts between her claws. He saw Flair lift small rocks into the air with his mind. These were not just powerful dragons. They were his children, the family he had never expected to have, and he would do anything to protect them. Let them come, Jake said. We'll be ready. In the distance, the first human ships appeared as small dots against the orange sky. The real adventure was just beginning. Jake's cargo ship was finally running again, but it would not stay hidden for long. Captain Zethkar had helped him fix the engines before leaving in his own ship, but not before warning Jake about what was coming. The entire galaxy will be hunting. You now, Zethkar had said. The hegemony wants the cubs back. Your human government will want to study them. Pirates and criminals will try to capture them for profit. Trust no one. Now Jake was flying through deep space with the three dragon cubs, trying to stay ahead of his pursuers. The cubs had grown bigger and stronger over the past month. Spark was now the size of a medium dog, his blue scales shimmering with energy. Ember had protective instincts that grew stronger each day, and her electric powers were getting more controlled. Flair was learning new words every day and could now lift objects as heavy as Jake himself. Where we go, Yaek? Flair asked from his spot next to the pilot's chair. Somewhere safe, Jake replied. Though he was not sure such a place existed anymore, Jake had been avoiding the main shipping lanes, using old smuggler routes that he remembered from his early days as a pilot. But even in the empty regions of space, he kept seeing ships that seemed to be following him. His communication system beeped with an incoming message. Jake hesitated, then accepted the call. The face of a human woman appeared on his screen. She wore the uniform of the Terran Federation Navy. Mr. Miller, I am Admiral Lisa Brooks of the Federation Fleet. We need to talk. Jake's hand moved toward the disconnect button, but the Admiral continued quickly. Wait, I know what you're thinking, but I'm not here to take the dragons from you. I have information you need to hear. Against his better judgment, Jake kept the channel open. What kind of information? The Draconic Hegemony is mobilizing their entire fleet, Admiral Brooks said. They're claiming that humans stole sacred dragon cubs and corrupted them with human influence. They're using this as an excuse to declare war on the Federation. Jake felt his stomach drop. War? Because of us? Not because of you specifically, the Admiral replied. They've been looking for a reason to attack us for years. The dragon cubs just gave them the excuse they needed. But Mr. Miller, those cubs might also be the key to preventing this war. How? Admiral Brooks leaned forward on the screen. Our scientists believe that the cubs' abilities could revolutionize space travel and defense. If we can study them, learn from them, we might be able to create technology that could stop the hegemony without bloodshed. You want to use them as weapons, Jake said flatly. I want to save millions of lives, the Admiral replied. Come to the Titan station. We can protect you and the cubs there while we figure out a peaceful solution. Jake was about to refuse when warning alarms began sounding throughout his ship. 3 hegemony warships had appeared out of hyperspace, surrounding his small cargo vessel. This is Commander Veltar of the Hegemony Fleet, a harsh voice announced over the radio. Human vessel, prepare to be boarded. You will surrender the stolen dragon cubs immediately. Jake looked at Spark, Ember, and Flare. The 3 dragons moved closer to him, sensing the danger. No take cubs, Ember said firmly, electricity sparking around her small body. That's right, Jake said. No one takes you anywhere you don't want to go. Admiral Brooks was still on the communication screen. Mr. Miller, we have ships in this sector. We can help you, but you need to trust us. Before Jake could answer, the hegemony ships opened fire. Energy beams struck Jake's shields, causing the lights in his ship to flicker. Shields failing, Jake muttered. Working frantically at his controls. Flare suddenly stood up, his eyes glowing with concentration. One of the attacking ships began to shake as the young dragon focused his gravity powers on it. Flare, no, Jake said. You'll hurt yourself. But Flare was not alone. Spark created a massive energy shield around Jake's ship, while Ember sent electrical pulses toward the enemy vessels, disrupting their weapon systems. The 3 cubs working together were more powerful than Jake had ever imagined. But he could see the effort was tiring them. They were still young, and using their abilities for so long was draining their strength. I'm coming to help, Admiral Brooks said from the screen. Federation ships are jumping to your location now. Sure enough, 5 human warships appeared near Jake's position, their weapons already charging. But instead of attacking the hegemony vessels, they positioned themselves between Jake's ship and the aliens. This is Admiral Brooks of hegemony vessels. You are in Federation space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The cubs belong to the hegemony, Commander Veltar replied. We will not leave without them. The cubs are free beings who have chosen their own path, Admiral Brooks shot back. We will not allow you to kidnap them. Jake realized that a major space battle was about to start, with him and the dragons in the middle of it. But before anyone could fire another shot, something unexpected happened. More ships began appearing around them. Not human ships or hegemony vessels, but the rough, ugly ships of pirates and criminals. Word of the dragons' abilities had spread, and everyone wanted a piece of the action. This is Captain Rex Bones of the Black Star Raiders, a new voice announced. Those dragons are worth more than all your fleets combined. Anyone who wants them can go through us first. Within minutes, Jake found himself surrounded by dozens of ships from at least 6 different factions, all wanting to claim the 3 dragon cubs. Spark, Ember, and Flare pressed close to Jake, frightened by all the attention and conflict surrounding them. Too many ships, Flare said quietly. Too much danger. Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. He opened a channel to all the ships at once. This is Jake Miller, he announced. I have something to say to all of you. The space around them fell silent as every faction waited to hear what the human with the most valuable cargo in the galaxy had to say. These dragons are not property, Jake began. They're not weapons or tools or prizes to be won. They're children who have names and feelings and dreams of their own. And I'll be damned if I let anyone take them away from their family. You cannot fight all of us, human. Commander Veltar responded. Jake looked at the 3 dragons who trusted him completely, then at the screen showing dozens of warships surrounding his small cargo vessel. Maybe not, Jake said. But we're about to find out. The space around Jake's ship was filled with warships from every major power in the galaxy. Federation vessels, hegemony destroyers, pirate raiders, and mercenary fleets all waited in tense silence after Jake's bold declaration. You speak brave words, human, Commander Veltar said over the radio. But you have nowhere to run. Surrender the cubs now, and we may allow you to live. The Federation can offer you protection, Admiral Brooks added, but only if you cooperate with us. Those dragons are worth more credits than you can count. Captain Rex Bones of the Pirates laughed. Hand them over, and we'll split the profit with you. Jake looked at Spark, Ember, and Flare. The 3 young dragons were pressed against his legs, their eyes wide with fear at all the hostile voices surrounding them. They had grown so much since he first found them under those rocks. But they were still just children. What do you want to do? Jake asked them softly. Flare, who had become the best speaker among the 3, looked up at Jake with determined eyes. Want to stay with Packfather? Want to choose own path? No one owns us, Ember added, small sparks of electricity dancing around her claws. Spark simply pressed closer to Jake and made his protective barrier glow brighter. Jake smiled despite their dangerous situation. Then that's what we'll do. He opened the communication channel to address all the ships again. I want everyone to listen carefully. These dragons have something to say. The space fell silent. No one had expected the dragons themselves to speak. Flare stepped forward, though he barely reached Jake's waist. When he spoke, his voice was carried to every ship in the area. I am Flare, he said clearly. These are my sister Ember and my brother Spark. We are not things to be owned. We are not weapons to be used. We are family with Jake Miller, who saved us when our own people left us to die. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the communication channels. Many of the ship captains had not realized the dragons could speak so well. Ember spoke next, her voice strong and brave. Jake fed us when we were hungry. Jake protected us when we were scared. Jake taught us that family is not about blood or species. It is about love and loyalty. Finally, Spark added in his quieter voice, we choose to stay with our Packfather. We choose freedom. Commander Veltar was the first to respond, his voice angry. These cubs have been corrupted by human influence. They do not know their true nature. We will take them back to the hegemony and teach them proper dragon ways. With respect, Commander, a new voice interrupted. It was Captain Zethkar, whose ship had just arrived at the scene. I have seen these cubs in action. They know exactly who they are. Captain Zethkar, Veltar snarled. You will be court-martialed for aiding the human. Perhaps, Zethkar replied calmly. But I have had time to think about our traditions. For 1,000 years, we have abandoned cubs like these, believing they were defective. Instead, we were throwing away our greatest gifts. The humans showed us a better way. Admiral Brooks seized the moment. The dragons have made their choice. Clear. They want to stay with Mr. Miller. The Federation will respect that choice and offer them all citizenship and protection. The Federation just wants to study them, Captain Rex Bones accused. At least we're honest about wanting the money they're worth. Nobody is taking them anywhere, Jake said firmly. They're my family, and they'll live free. That was when something amazing happened. Other voices began joining the conversation. Not ship captains or military commanders, but ordinary crew members. "The humans right," said a voice from one of the Federation ships. "They're just kids. They should get to choose." "My own daughter is about their age," added someone from a merchant vessel. "No one should take children from their family." "The dragons saved their packfather's life," observed a crew member from Zithkar's ship. "That shows true loyalty." More and more voices joined in, people from different species and factions, agreeing that the dragons should be free to make their own choice. The ship captains and commanders found themselves outnumbered by their own crews. Admiral Brooks was the first leader to change her position. "Mr. Miller, the Federation formally offers you and the dragons full citizenship. You would be free to live wherever you choose within Federation space." Captain Zethkar spoke next. "I cannot speak for the hegemony, but I personally recognize the dragons' right to choose their own path. They have proven themselves worthy of respect." Even some of the pirate captains began to back down as their crews expressed support for the unusual family. Commander Veltar was one of the few who still refused to accept the situation. "This is not over," he announced. "The hegemony will not forget this insult." "Then the hegemony will have to deal with all of us," Admiral Brooks replied, "because these dragons are under Federation protection now." As the various fleets began to disperse, Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It was not perfect. There would always be those who wanted to use the dragons for their own purposes. But for the first time since finding the cubs, he felt hope. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Second Chance. It was bigger than his old cargo hauler and designed for a very special crew. Spark, Ember, and Flare had grown into magnificent young dragons, their powers continuing to develop. They had started a small transport business, carrying cargo and passengers throughout Federation space. The dragons' abilities made them incredibly efficient. Spark's energy shields protected them from pirates. Ember's electrical powers could repair damaged systems, and Flare's gravity control made loading cargo effortless. But more than that, they had become famous throughout human space, as proof that sometimes the greatest strength comes from kindness rather than conquest. "Where to next, Packfather?" Flare asked, now large enough to help operate the ship's controls. Jake looked out at the stars and smiled. "Anywhere we want to go, we're free." The 3 dragons made their happy sounds, and Jake felt the warmth of a family that had chosen each other across the vastness of space. Sometimes the most important things in life came from the most unexpected places. Their adventure was just beginning.